Thank you.
Perfect.
Welcome, everybody. Glad to see so many here today. Fremont Art Association is delighted to have watercolor artist Meghana Mitragotri as the guest demo artist today. Meg has won many awards for her beautiful paintings. She shows them in many places in the Bay Area. Her style is often realistic and sometimes impressionistic, and she uses unconventional tools to incorporate interesting techniques and to create unique effects in her watercolor paintings. Meg, welcome to Fremont Art Association.
Thank you so much, Mary, for that wonderful introduction. And hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. Can you all hear me loud and clear? Just a thumbs up will be great. Okay, awesome. My name is Meghana Mitragotri. You could just call me Meg. It's simple. I am a watercolor artist, and I have been painting for over 30 years now. I don't have a formal education in art. It's always been a hobby for me, but I've just been doing it for a very, very long time. I have tried a lot of media, but I think watercolor is something that I just love to work with. I think this today being here is very special for me because this is, I don't know, the third or fourth time probably the Fremont Art Association has invited me back as a demo artist. And I just love the group so much. I have very, very close friends. I have Mary right here, Helene Roylance is here, Tatiana, Lena. I mean, they're all really, really close friends. And it's always a pleasure to be here and perform an art demonstration. Please feel free to ask me any questions during the demo. And I'll try to keep it interactive. I usually talk a lot while I'm doing the demonstration, so I hope that's okay. I wanted to try out something new, a subject that I've never done in the past. I usually do flowers and landscapes. So before I show you what I want to do today, so I have to tell you, I did do a little bit of practice yesterday, because I've never tried that subject before. So I hope you'll enjoy it. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch the camera. So this is an Okio Cam camera, overhead camera that I use for all my demos. I hope you will be able to see things well. And I will show you some, I've sold some originals, but I do have some prints, and I have some prints on wood panels that I'm going to just slide under the camera so you're able to see, and I'll talk a little bit about those. I do have a website. It's www.daintylymade.com. Daintily Made is the name of my company. It is really unfortunate that for the last couple of days, my website has been acting weird. Every time you click on a link, it takes more than a couple of minutes to get to that page. So I'm so sorry this has happened at this time, but I'm trying to work on getting that fixed. In the meantime, you can always write an email to me. I'll put my email address in the chat, and I can add you to my private contact list. Okay, so I'm going to turn the camera around and let me know if you're able to see what I'm about to show you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay. This is just, I was just doodling last night. This is not what I'm going to demonstrate, but I just wanted to bring this up to see if you're able to, view everything on your screens. This is a 6x8 watercolor paper, and I will be doing a painting on 6x8. After years and years of demonstration over Zoom, I figured this is the best size for me to do a little painting, and also with the time that we have at hand. Before I talk to you a little bit more about this painting, it's just a very simple bird bath. I am going to bring and just slide some of my wood panel prints right here, just for you to see some examples of my work. So let's begin. So this is called, so all the wood panel prints that I'm showing you, they are all prints of my original watercolor paintings. And the size of these panels are 5x7, and that kind of fit perfectly under this camera. So these are called Johnny Jump Ups. This was a painting that I did from a photograph taken at one of the planters at Vente Vineyards in Livermore. I will certainly be talking to you about the most commonly used techniques that I use. For example, in this particular painting, so this is okay. For me, it's a mirror image, but can you read this wet on dry? Are you able to see this the way you should be seeing it?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, good. So these are the techniques that I use in all of my watercolor paintings. Wet on dry, wet on wet, negative painting technique, a salt technique, lifting up. This is called scumbling, and this is splatter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you just a couple of subjects that I have here and what technique I have used, okay? So just at the first glance, if you were to take a look at these techniques, and if I show you this bark of a tree, can you tell me, and you can type it in the chat, and maybe Tatiana or someone can just read out to me, what technique do you think I have used on these branches here? If I just leave this on, and you could just type, tell me based on what you see. Just trying to make it a little interactive. Anything? Anybody?
Maybe it's combined. I mean, it looked like a little bit of salt
A little bit of salt. Okay.
and
Anything else?
and scumbling.
Scumbling. Okay.
Yeah,
You're
on
absolutely.
dry. Is it scumbling? Is it you use
It
dry
is.
dry brush?
Absolutely. You're right. You're right. This is definitely scumbling. So scumbling is also known as, yes, Carol, you're absolutely correct. It is scumbling. So this is a dry brush technique where I keep my brush absolutely parallel to the paper. There's no water. I just touch, say, if this is a brown color, I just take hardly, very, very little water just for the paint to kind of touch on my brush. I just do that. Okay. And then I would go back to the stem and just do this. Absolutely dry paint with extremely little water. So that's scumbling. So that's one technique I have used here. And these are great when you want to use over, or when you want to make a surface look rugged, like a roof of a building, branches of tree trunk, something that you want to give a very, very rugged look. So that's when I use the scumbling technique. Okay, so that's what I've used here. Background is usually the wet on wet technique, where the background is wet and then you apply wet paint on the wet paper. So that's why it's called wet on wet technique. Okay, so that's that. And then these are just poppies. I used a lot of, this is, probably 85% of this painting is wet on wet technique. And then after everything dries, then I use a very thin brush, something like this, a number 2, number 0, and then I do all of the details like these little lines. The brushes that I use typically are either Princeton or Escoda, and I use not more than 2 or 3 brushes in a painting. So this is a 3/4 inch flat brush that I use a lot for my background work. And then this is a number 4, round number 4, number 6, I use one of the 2. This is Princeton Velvet Touch. It's a really nice brush. It maintains a beautiful round point. And I use this for majority of the painting. And then I use maybe a number 0, 1, 2. This is a number 2. This is a Princeton Aqua Elite number 0, which are really, brushes that I use for fine details. So this is pretty much what I what I use. So really, really simple. So most of this is wet on wet technique. And then this is one of the recent paintings that I did of hollyhocks. Lot of glazing. Glazing is layers of paints, and then a lot of wet on wet on this background right here. The shadows, I use some blues and purples for the shadows and things. I love to drop paints while the background is still wet. So if you take a look at all these brown dots, I have just splattered some either burnt sienna, or there's this beautiful color called quinacridone sienna, which is this really, really rich reddish brown color that is typically used on canyons and mountains and so on and so forth. And I just love to mix those up with greens. Oh, thank you, Allison. Just reading out the comments. She says, beautiful, thank you. So that's that. And then I also do landscapes. So it's kind of handy when you use a small camera and then you have small prints to show. That way you can see multiple paintings. So this was also one of my recent paintings that also was featured and was part of the California Watercolor Association 53rd National Show. After being rejected for two years or so, I was very happy to get into this jury show. So here, so the one thing about sky, I spent not more than 3 minutes on a sky, and this was a large half sheet painting. So it was like 14 by 21. It was a really large size paper, and I yet finished the sky in about 3 to 5 minutes. I used only 3 colors. For sky, I typically use this is a cadmium red light. This is yellow ochre, and then ultramarine blue. These are the only 3 colors I always use for the sky. And then if you look at all of these little white highlights, this is all a technique called negative painting. Negative painting is, so what I did is, do you see this orange here? Or maybe, let me see if I can show you a better spot. Maybe this one right here. I left this piece sticking out there, a branch or something, and I just painted around the subject to reveal it. That's called negative painting. And today I am going to show you a lot of negative painting as well. So you see all of these these are really the details that make a painting look alive. So that's the negative painting. A lot of wet. The sky is always a wet on wet technique. So that's that. And let me know if you're bored and I can switch to my demo, but I just wanted to show you again. Do you see this branch right here? This has got scumbling and a lot of negative painting to separate the flower, the petals of the hydrangea. I painted around them to reveal them, kind of making it dark to reveal the lights, making the surrounding dark to reveal the lights. Okay, so that's that. I have not used any masking fluid in this. All of these white or light lines that you see, I have carefully painted around those lines to reveal them. There's absolutely no masking fluid involved here. Okay, let's see what else we have. Okay, this is a little spring planter. This is masking. You can tell, when you see a painting, you can tell with experience which one has masking and which one. So a lot of people ask me, do you use masking fluid in your paintings? Not all the time, very, very rarely. I think I just enjoy the process of negative painting, but if I really want extremely fine details and very, very fine lines, I think there's a lot going on here, a lot. So when I have to do that, yes, I do use masking fluid a little bit, and then I paint the rest, and then I just use an eraser and just get those off. So that's that. And this is one of my recent paintings. I believe this is the one that you have on the website as well. My irises. I really wanted to experiment with blues and greens and browns, and I just wanted to make it a juicy painting, I guess. So I did add different elements of or different colored irises, and this, no masking fluid involved in this painting. All of this I carefully painted around. So absolutely no masking fluid involved in this painting. And this was also a large 14 by 21 sheet painting. So that's that. Okay, and then many of you have probably seen this painting, and many people do love it. It's one of my favorite paintings as well. It's called Nasturtiums. It's been to many shows and has won several awards as well. Masking fluid. Let's see. This is not masking, but this is, and this is. This is, so really maybe just, like I said, I don't use a whole lot, just if I want the real fine details. So that's that. And then you heard Mary say, and you probably also read, that I do realistic style painting, something like this. And I also do impressionistic style painting. Now, what is impressionist style? Say something like this. Impressionist style is 95% of wet on wet technique, and you don't care so much as to what's going on in the background. You are only focusing a little bit on the main subjects, and you really don't care. So if this painting takes 12 hours to paint, this painting will take about 30 minutes. That's the difference. So it's really very loose, very impressionistic, right? Let me show you one more impressionist painting that I have. It's this. It's just a group of red flowers, very random strokes, random lines. Remember, we are still talking about light. We are still talking about the lights and darks in a painting. But most of the background, so in fact, all of this painting is mostly wet on wet technique. And then while the paper is wet, you kind of lifting up. Lifting up is when you literally have very little water, and then you just lift the paint and wipe it to a tissue. Lift. Okay. So so that's all of these light parts. So these are impressionist styles. And then so that's that. What else do I have? Okay, this was a very difficult painting for me. It is hellebores. Oh, this was tough one. So I mostly take photographs in my backyard or when I go on trails, and then I come back to my studio and paint. This particular hellebore was green in color. So it was like green flowers and green leaves. How am I going to even, so get the difference between the leaves and the flowers? So the trick I tried here is completely different shades of greens for the flowers and different shades of greens for the leaves. But this was a tough one. Masking fluid. Okay. Now, if you take a look at these little lines coming from inside, even these little dots here, that's masking fluid that I used, but everything else is just either negative painting or one of the other techniques that are listed here. Okay, so that's that. And I just show you a couple of more, maybe some examples of landscape painting. So this is this painting is called Livermore Vineyards. This is actually right outside Vente Vineyards in Livermore. No masking fluid in this painting at all. Lot of wet on wet technique. Again, this was an 11 by 14. Lot of wet on wet technique, only 3 colors on the sky, not more than 3 minutes. And a lot of negative painting here as well. So you see all these branches that stick out. What did I do? I just took a dark green and went around, leaving these branches sticking out. That's how, and that gives a beautiful effect. And it lets the viewer know, oh, there's a lot of details in this painting. Well, it's negative painting does take time and patience, but at the end, you're really happy with what you have. So there's a lot of negative painting here, wet on wet technique here. I did a lot of scumbling here with some dark paint at the end. So yeah, so that's one of my landscape paintings. And then maybe this is the last one I will show. This is a painting of a cottage. And all of these branches that you see, again, zero negative painting involved. I had to carefully, go around and paint around these branches to reveal them using the negative painting technique. A lot of scumbling on the roof and the sides of these walls here. This is, so there is a concept of receding value in watercolor. That is when you want to see something or when you want to paint something that's far, far away. So if you look at all of these trees far away here, it gives you a suggestion or an impression that there are a lot of trees back there, but they're really so far back that you see them as blues and reds and yellows and so on and so forth. So when you want to paint something that's really far away, you use those muted cool shades, and then you mix up a few colors and then just make extremely light strokes, and that will let you know that there is something far back instead of just seeing the sky. So receding value. And then negative painting, and yeah. So that's that. These were just some samples that I wanted to show you all before I did the painting. And let me switch the camera now, and I want to show you. Okay, hi. Did you find that interesting? The different examples of the work and the techniques that I used.
Yes.
I love seeing behind the scenes and your admission of when you use masking and when you use negative painting.
I know. I mean, like I said, you can't hide it. So you can't tell people, no, I haven't used. But and really, there's nothing wrong with using a masking fluid or a resistant fluid. It's absolutely fine. I just don't use too much, only if I really, really have to. So now I want to show you a painting. You're probably one of the first groups to see this painting. I have painted lilacs for the very first time yesterday, and let me show you what that looks like. So this is the painting of lilacs. I've always wanted to paint them, but somehow never got to it. So yesterday I thought, so I was just telling myself, I really want to paint something new for this group. So I thought, why not try lilacs? So what we're going to do today is paint. This is an 8x10 paper. I'm going to use a 6x8. So I'll probably just take one small portion of this painting and paint for you today. I know this is framed, but let me see if I can still get it under the overhead to show you what it looks like. Can you see it at all? Yes?
Very well, yes.
Okay, cool. So that's the lilac. Okay, let's talk just a little bit about what we are going to do today. And I'll use my handy dandy brush. So highlights, right? So first we determine the lights, the shadows, and so on and so forth. And then, you're going to wonder, but I have not used pencil in this painting. Honestly, what I just did and what I'm going to do now is I take a pencil. This is a 4H, and all I did was just this. That's it. I just did this, and I just did this, and I did this. That's all. I never drew, and probably, I don't know if you want to call me lazy or what, but I just didn't want to use, I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to try and see if I can really get those flowers out. So lilac is a mix of little flowers. So after I do the first glaze, I actually lifted up these flowers to reveal the lighter shades. Okay, and then I took a darker paint and I painted around them like negative painting, and that's what I did. And do you see these light petals sticking out here? That's pure negative painting. I just took a dark paint and I just went around and then blended it with the background. That's it. So while many people feel watercolor is challenging, I completely understand. But you know what? If you learn the techniques right and apply them, and of course, brush mileage, practice is everything, it's easy. It really is. So, and then of course, I did some wet on wet technique in the background. Again, receding value technique, where I just took some blue to let people know that there's something, you know, there are more leaves back there. Some are forward, some are at the back. And I will also talk to you about the greens that I use, you know, during the painting, but I guess let's start painting now. So this is what I'm going to be doing. I might just take a small piece and let's paint. Okay. So I have to tell you something. I have tried using different watercolor papers. Typically what I use is Arches, and probably most of you also probably use that. But this is not what I'm going to use today. So the paper that I showed you just now, that with the lilac painting, a friend of mine told me that I should try Fabriano. However, I didn't realize, and I got Fabriano 25% cotton. Usually the best watercolor papers are 100%, but I got this and I used it. And the difference that I found between Arches and this is that Arches, because it's 100% cotton, it absorbs. Whereas if you want to, you know, so this is a lot more, or maybe just a little more smooth. So I can actually move the painting really, or move my paints really, really quickly. So that's the difference I found between Fabriano and Arches. What I am going to use today is, you know, like I said, I'm just trying out different papers. This is called Fluid. I bought this from an art store called Flax. So it's Fluid watercolor paper, cold press, 140 pound. And this is a block. So what happens in a block is great because it prevents buckling, right? This remains flat. So even if you're a plein air painter or, I'm sorry. Helene, were there any questions that I left unanswered or?
No, I'm sorry, sweetie. Keep going.
Okay, sorry, I'm sorry. All right, so I was saying that, yeah, this remains flat. So if you're a plein air painter or you love to travel, you could carry a block because you could be assured that there'll be no buckling or crinking of the paper and things. And the best way to separate out, these have all been glued together, and the best way to separate them is either use your nails, or you could use a palette knife like this, and you could just, so you will see a hole between the paper you just painted and the next one. You just stick it in between and you just move it all the way around like this. Okay, and there you have it, a perfectly straight painting. Okay, so that's the advantage of using blocks. But you know what? I use a lot of loose sheets as well, and they were perfectly fine. But today we're going to use this. Before I start the painting, I wanted to show you what I did with this. I was just doodling. I've always wanted to paint bird bath, and finally I just sat down last night to paint. So the one technique, can you see these lines here? These are negative, sorry, this is lifting up technique. So let me try one. Let me try to create a line and show you right now. Okay, so I have my water here And I have this brush and I just dip it, take off the excess water. And let's see if this line is not very clear. Let me see if I can make that more prominent. So all I do is just move, I'm just lifting up. And then I use a tissue paper or a paper towel, not any paper towel. This is Viva paper towel that I use at all times. Why I don't use any others? Because other paper towels have they have holes like patterns. So if you dab them, you might get impressions of the pattern on your paper. Whereas the Viva paper towels are absolutely smooth and they're really nice to lift off anything from your paper. So Viva paper towel, VIVA. So let me see. Let's create another new line, just a line here. So I don't know if you can see it, but all I'm doing is just removing excess paint and then I dab. Do you see that? Do you see that line we just created? So this is called lifting up technique. Okay, so there you have it. Anyway, oh, the other place that I used lifting up was, do you see this branch here? This whole thing was dark brown. This whole thing was dark blue. After the paper completely dry, I used the same wet brush, just slightly wet. You have to lift up because what happens is if you don't lift it, if you don't dab it with a paper towel, the water that remains on that paper will smudge into the background and you don't want that. You want a steady line. So you do this and then you immediately dab. You do this and just dab it with the paper towel. So that's what I did here. All right, everyone, let's paint some lilacs. I'm going to do right from drawing to, so it's 1:47. How long do we have roughly?
You
An
have
hour?
3 p.m.
Oh, okay. Okay. No, I'll try not to take that long, but we'll see. All right, everyone. I have my pencil and I know you probably will be shocked the way I'm drawing and I'm so sorry. Please feel free to use pencil as much as you want to. It's just my style. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this. That's all. Basically, I'm giving myself a boundary to work with. I probably cannot even see it. Let me make it darker. Okay, that's one bush right there. And then I'm going to use another line that comes something like this. And then a little one right here. And let's first do these and then we'll see where to go next, right? There's no rule that you have to use pencil only at the start of the painting. Absolutely not. You can use it at any time. Okay, so that's my drawing, you guys. Okay, let's draw a few leaves maybe here and there. Let's do a little leaf here, maybe a leaf here, and whatever, we'll see. So that's the only drawing that I'm going to do here because I'm going to use different techniques to create those little flowers. All right. Now, the paints that I use, so I told you about the brushes. They are Princeton number 4 or number 6, number 1 or number 2, a 3/4 flat inch brush. And yeah, the paints that I use, they are Daniel Smith. Very rich, very vibrant colors. Once you get hooked onto this, at least once I got hooked onto this paints, I did not switch to any other. My family gifted me the Schminke brand. I haven't still used that, but this is pretty much what I use. So let me just read out the colors that I have. This is ultramarine blue. This is phthalo blue, the blue shade. This is yellow ochre, cadmium red light, lemon yellow, sap green, which is the base for all the greens that I use. This is quinacridone sienna, beautiful color. Quinacridone gold, excellent color. I mix a lot of these with greens and you get this absolutely gorgeous, bright, foresty green. And then this is chromium green. This is crimson, alizarin crimson. This is burnt umber, which is a dark brown. This is new gamboge, which is a very sunny yellow, beautiful, looks great, especially on sunflowers and things. You should try it if you don't have this. And then here's a little orange. Okay, I have to tell you this. And probably some of you who've attended my demos in the past know that this is a messy palette. But what are we if you're not messy artists, right? So this is a beautiful violet called Carbazole Violet, which I have used a lot in the lilacs painting, and we are going to be using that. It's a very, very, very rich violet. I mean, a little goes a long way. And then I have another color here. This is from a brand called Reeves. It's a student grade color, and I think it's called Skin or Peach. I don't remember exactly what it is, but it is one of that peachy skin tone color. I do use those a lot in my painting as well. And another shade of interesting shade of green that I like to use, it's a Daniel Smith paint called Green Gold. It's a lovely, lovely green. So we will use some of that as well today. Okay, so that's pretty much my palette. I know it's pretty colorful, but anyway, so how do I moisten my paints? Okay, say after a few days, your paints have dried completely. I take a spray bottle like this and I just spray it on all the wells here. That's it. And you have a moistened palette. And the same thing here. So that's how, this is very useful. So I just use a spray bottle. All right, everybody, let's start painting. I am going to use a technique now, which is the wet on wet technique. I'm going to wet the paper and then apply some wet paint. Okay, so let's get started. I'm using the Princeton round number 6. I dip it into water and I just apply water like that. Okay, that's it. Because it's a demo, I'm going to try and go faster, but when I do workshops, of course, it's much slow. And I take Carbazole Violet and just kind of see how it bleeds, just randomly. So for the flowers, I will primarily be using Carbazole Violet, Alizarin Crimson, and the lovely peachy flesh paint. Okay, so that's what I'm going to be using mostly. And then you let them mingle. You will notice that I typically don't mix colors on my palette. I let the paper do the mixing for me, okay? So yeah, just little dots and dashes outside that boundary. It doesn't have to be this shape. This is just for me to know what the direction of my flowers. So, and that's it. That's my first glaze. Let's go to the next. Okay, all right, so just water, then Carbazole Violet. Alizarin Crimson. And the color. Little dots and dashes are extremely important to make your painting look detailed. Okay. All right. Now watch closely what I'm going to do here. I'm going to mix a darker shade I will use the carbazole violet and alizarin crimson. Let me show you how dark. So this is a very, very light wash that I have used, but now I'm going to use a really deep wash. It's a really dark color. It's the carbazole violet plus alizarin crimson that gives a, you know, a nice rich color. Look at what I'm going to do now. I'm going to use negative painting immediately, okay? So I start here. And just by doing that, I have created these shapes right here. Don't worry, this is going to happen. Ideally, I should wait just for this to dry a little bit. But if you have accidents like this, and that's one thing I do in my workshops, I try my best to tell people how to fix some accidents. So if you have this bleeding right here, no problem. Just wash off the excess paint and just lift. There you go. So it's as easy as that, okay? So never worry. Things can be fixed. A lot of people don't want to try watercolors. They're like, oh, what if I make a mistake once? Now what, you know? So don't have to worry. We can work with all of these things. So just by doing that, I have kind of tried to create some shape with the negative painting. And then I can, of course, go over and do whatever we did here, right? I just, what I'm doing now is dry on wet. Sorry, wet on dry. Dry paper and wet paint, right? So you can also blend colors with that. So I use that mixture, and then I'm using a very diluted wash of the purple, carbazole violet, right? Dots and dashes. Oh, they look so beautiful at the end of it. You're like, oh my God, all these shapes, but it's nothing, just doing this. That's it. Okay. And we'll go back to our peach. This is only the first glaze, you guys. We will go back to these and make them more prominent. Okay. This is just the initial bit, right? So just like that. So watercolor is all about layering, glazing. You do one coat, and then you wait for it to dry, and then you go over, and then you go over until it feels right. Okay, so that's how. So do you see that beautiful blending of just three colors that we have used, right? And that's all that I did for my initial part of the painting. Now, what I will do is, in order to make some white flowers, I need to apply another coat. So, for example, I know this is just dry, but let me see if we can still get some. Ideally, I should wait for it to dry, but let me see if I can get some petals out of this. So I'm using a thinner brush, number 2, and do you see that? All I did is just lifting the paint, that's all. And I get my light flowers right there, right? Let's do one more here. It doesn't have to be perfect, you guys. Just dabbing. There we have it. So that's pretty much what I did. However, to get the light flowers here, it's already too light. I'm not sure if I can achieve anything lighter, but we'll try anyway. Okay. I'm just creating shapes like little crosses. Can you see this, guys? This is and this is how I got my lightest of light flowers, which are facing the sunlight directly. Okay.
Do you find this technique to be easier on some types of paper than others?
It is. It really does depend. I find this is easier on a less percentage of cotton paper than not. However, I have lifted up a lot of paint on arches 100% cotton as well. This is just my experience. Maybe because it's not absorbed fully yet, and maybe it just stays wet for a little longer, and hence I find that lifting is easier. The other thing is, with watercolor, you guys, timing is everything. How wet your paper is, it's extremely crucial, and that only comes with practice. So okay, so those are our lightest of lights. What if I were to do the reverse? What if I had to do, so lifting up technique is the opposite of negative painting. Let's create some petals using the negative painting technique, okay? So let's create something here. I don't stop with that. I blend this with the background. So what did I just do? I just painted around the subject. I did a little drawing with the initial paint, but it cannot be too dark. And I painted around it, blending whatever was excess with the background. And there you have it. This is a classic example of the negative painting technique. So it is the reverse of what I just did here, right? Yeah, it's like magic. All right, let's get going. I'm going to go a little fast. And really, it's all about making those shapes as you go. Feel free to ask me anything. I try to keep it engaging while I talk, but sometimes it just needs that kind of focus. So as you can see, it is a time-taking process, but I enjoy it. Okay, so there you have it. Using a little bit of blue. And you know what? When you do something like this, it is just a suggestion. You don't have to make every single flower light. Just leave a few and they will understand that it is a it's a lilac. You don't have to sit and do everywhere, just a few here and there is plenty. So, okay, so let's and you don't have to do all four all the time, right? You can just stop with just one petal or two, just like that. That's that part. Let's go ahead and work a little bit on on this flower right here. Maybe I make it a little bit darker. Definitely, this is a flower that takes much longer than the others. You know, where it's just 4 or 5 petals and then you're done with that. Flowers like these, hydrangea, they are, you know, they kind of like the almost realistic type of such flowers do take a while. Once you do the outline, you have to blend it with the background. You cannot just leave it. Otherwise, it looks like a stark figure right there. And you want things to blend. Blue. And that's it. Each. Just seems like random dots, but I use a lot of this technique in my paintings. Okay, so that's that. And let's work on this flower right here.
I was sitting here the whole time and all of a sudden these flowers have just popped off the page.
These ones, yeah. Well, I hope you're all enjoying it. I certainly love this process very much. And you know, have you ever been in a situation where one subject becomes your favorite and you want to keep painting that till the time you hit, like, you know, a point where you're like, okay, I got to change things now? I'm at that point. And I think for the next few days, it's going to be lilacs. All right. So let's do this. First, let's see if we can lift something here. I doubt it because it's so light already. Let's try it anyway. So 1 tap, 2, never stop with that. Blend it with the background, right? That's when this appears. And for those who are uncomfortable doing this, you can absolutely go ahead and draw those shapes. For example, you can just take a pencil. If you're not comfortable doing that, feel free to just draw those little flowers, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. And then you take your paint and go around. You can absolutely do that. Okay, so choose a technique that's most comfortable. You keep going. I am going fast because and I know it looks slow, but I'm trying to get to a point where I'm able to show you something from start to finish. So I'm hoping to somewhat finish this painting at this meeting. You can always tidy up things. Okay. Somewhere between realistic and impressionist. It's you can tell these are petals, but they're not the exact shape of the actual flower. But then, hey, you're an artist. You can make it whatever you want it to be. So, okay, this area is wet. Let's try something fun. Let's make this dark, okay? And I want to come back, not come back, we'll come back to it right now because I have my handy dandy hairdryer. Usually I don't use them. I only use them when I do demos because, you know, I need to show the next steps. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to use the hairdryer, and then we will make more negative or lifting up shapes right here, okay? So when you're using, if you ever want to use a hairdryer, always use it on a low setting. So I'm going to bring it down. Let me mute myself, and then I'll come back to you when this part is dry. Okay, it'll just be a few seconds. All right, everyone, it is somewhat dry. Now, one of the classic characteristics of watercolor is that it dries much lighter than the first paint that you apply. So it always dries much lighter. So what I applied initially was much darker, but then when it dries, it becomes light. So you need to keep that in mind when you work with watercolor. And once it's fully dry, you will know how much to intensify the color, right? Now, let's try the lifting up technique. Okay, I know I told you I'm going to use some unconventional tools. Let's see. So this is a piece of Mr. Clean's magic eraser. Okay, I just cut it up, and a lot of times I use this to lift paint as well. This may be a little too thick, but let me see if I can create a petal shape with this. I know it's kind of too big. So how do I use this thing? Okay, so let me show you a painting in which I have actually used this, just for you to see the effect. So in this painting, I don't know if you can see this little leaf here. All I did was I just dipped this part in water. I squeezed the water out completely, and it was a dark green background, just like this. And I just lifted it and made a leaf shape, right? That is what I did with the Mr. Clean's Magic Eraser. Look at the number of companies I am promoting just by doing this, this demo. So let's see if we can lift something here. So this is my water, and I'm dipping this corner right here, very little, and I squeeze out the excess water. And this will make more sense for larger surfaces. I don't know if I can create something here, but all right, here goes.
The other nice thing about those erasers is that you can cut them into a point, so you can make
Yeah,
yourself.
I think that's what I actually needed to do. So, okay, I did a cross here, but looks like because this is so large, it kind of extended, but we have ways to correct them. What do? Right now we lift it. We are going to do the opposite, which is the negative painting. So I just correct it just like that. I just take a darker paint. I go around. Blend it with the background. And I have my negative shape with the eraser. We will use this more when we probably make leaves in the background, only because this is so large. But Helene is right. You can cut this up to any shape or size you need, depending on what subject you want to create, right? So that's how I use the magic eraser. So
I honestly have no idea what those are actually for. I've only seen them used in watercolor.
these are used to clean bathtubs and sinks, Helene.
I had no idea.
Yeah. So they're available in Costco in a pack of, I don't know, 12, 24. And I watched this YouTube video once. So YouTube has plethora of knowledge, and that's when I picked this, picked it up. So anyway, so we are almost on the verge of finishing these flowers, and then I would like to get to the greens because I really want to show you. Green is one of my favorite colors, and I love to experiment with greens. So let's work with that. And then once we have that first glaze of green, we will go back and intensify wherever needed. So, right, so let's work with the greens. Now, what do I do with the greens? Greens, my base color. Now, look at my palette, you guys. It's so funny. I've not mixed anything on my palette. This is probably the only color I mixed, which is the Carbazole Violet and the Alizarin Crimson, nothing else. So like I said, I use the techniques and I let the paper do all the mixing for me. It's just been a style. But people are absolutely free to mix whatever color they want. If they want to really nail on a particular color choice in their composition and painting, go for it. Okay, so for the greens, my base is always sap green. For my lighter greens, I use sap green mixed with a lemon yellow, a yellow ochre, the new gamboge, which is the bright yellow, sometimes the peach, and so on and so forth. And for the darker shades of greens, I use sap green mixed with reds. If you've never tried using green with red, you should try it. It's just a beautiful green shade of green that you get. Green with quinacridone sienna, green with quinacridone gold. Chromium green is a little bit of a cooler green compared to sap green. So I will be using that in some of my leaves just to get a variation of the colors of leaves. And for the dark shades, I use sap green mixed with ultramarine blue, sap green mixed with phthalo blue, sap green mixed with raw sienna. Basically, mix anything with green. So let's get to that. So I'm going to start painting greens. I'm using the same number 6 brush. Sometimes people like to do background first and then the greens. I have no method to the madness there. I sometimes will do the green first and then I might go to the background and then I might add another green on top. Really, you know, I just do whatever feels comfortable with that particular composition and painting. So you all must be wondering, I haven't changed my water. Yes, I haven't changed. I feel like I can still work with this until it really turns opaque. So, all right, let's do the screen. Okay, so let's do just wet paint. Sorry, just wet paper with water, and I'm dropping some chromium green. See, the beauty about wet on wet is you don't have to do all the muscle work. Your paper does that magic for you. So as soon as you apply water and you apply paint over it, it just kind of bleeds and blends so well. I'm adding, okay, I'm going to be adding a bunch of colors that I just told you. I added chromium green and yellow ochre, a little bit of lemon yellow. Just feel free to play around, you know. So that's my first leaf right there. Let's have some fun. Let's do some negative painting to create some petal shapes here. Okay, so I'm creating just a couple of, and that's it. So as soon as you do that, you know, just that little detail, you have created a beautiful negative shape of the flower right here. It looks as if this flower is in front of this leaf, right? I love these kinds of effects. Okay. Right, so that's first leaf. Let's do a darker, richer green, maybe a little leaf here. I'd use my sap green. At this point, I start using my palette because I might mix reds into the greens, into the sap greens, reds and browns. So let's do another negative shape here. Okay, so I'm just creating the shape of the flower and then just extending a little leaf right there. This is sap green, and now I'm using quinacridone gold, and I create a beautiful, sweet little leaf, just like that. Okay. You want contrast and variation, so you can make this a little dark, and there you have it. 2 cute leaves. Now let's work on this one. So it's really, people think that you need to spend a long time. No, you really don't. Once you understand what greens you want to mix, and you know, just go with the flow. All right, let's do this right here. This time I'm using sap green. And let's use the dark brown, which is burnt umber. Negative painting. Hope you're not bored. Ultramarine blue, just a little bit of that. And you can always intensify the color at a later point. Right? Now, let's see if we can do something with the palette knife. This is a palette knife. I'm going to try and see if I can create a vein. Okay, so I hold it at an angle. what I have done with this is I've created a dent, and all of that green is going and sitting inside that vein, and it's going to remain that way, okay? And then create more shapes. If you do the same thing when it's dry, so this part is already a little dry, it will create a white line, okay? Just like that. All I'm doing is just scraping the paper, that's all. Okay, so that's another technique with the palette knife. Okay, let's move on to a few more greens. Okay, I'm going to take about a few minutes more and we'll try to complete the painting. I mean, I might be able to somewhat complete the painting, but I know I'll go over it after the meeting just to do some final touches. Let's go ahead and make some stem-like shapes. So I'll move to my thin brush and let me use sap green a little bit. And then quinacridone gold. This is a solid line, but I do something that I typically enjoy, and I'll tell you what that is. I turn my paper, and there's no paint on this brush. I just go over this line. I'm just going over it. What happens is this side starts to glow. Okay, as soon as I add the green and then I add another lighter color and I just do this, you feel a sense of light. So, and I really enjoy that in a painting. Okay, time to make few leaf shapes, and now I'm going to go really fast. I'm going to use some green gold. Green gold is a very rich green, and I'm going to create a leaf.
What I've always liked about your botanical paintings is how not all the leaves are just some perfect condition
No,
green.
they're not. That's because I never draw those shapes. I'm very random about my greens because I think I love to surprise myself with what I can create and and what kind of comes on. I really enjoy that process.
But the oranges and the yellows in there just make it look more realistic, like a plant that has some age spots, some sunspots.
Exactly. You're right. And I absolutely enjoy that. For example, this is going to dry much lighter. So if I were to show you guys, and thanks for bringing that up, Helene, because let me show you, in fact, in this painting right here, do you see these brown spots? Okay, these happen to be accidents at the beginning, but then I loved them so much that I was addicted, and every leaf that I had here, I just kept dropping either quinacridone sienna or burnt sienna or, different shades of yellows and browns. Let's try to make an aged leaf in this painting right here, okay? None of this was planned, but let's try it anyway. Let's use chromium green and let's do a little leaf here, okay? And we'll keep this light. Okay, so this is a leaf, you guys. And now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to drop quinacridone sienna, which is a reddish brown shade. It's wet paper, and I just barely touch it with that brown, and after it dries, it will, I promise, it will look like an aged leaf, something that's just about to dry out, right? And this is a technique that I discovered when I was doing my my nasturtiums. So I can do the same thing here. Just drop. And the beauty about all of this is it is subtle, right? You don't have to make it prominent at all. So, okay, then I'm going to let this dry and then I'll work on this bit a little later. And we can use our palette knife. Just do that. Make it a vein. And once it is somewhat dry, if you go back, they'll start appearing white because you will be scraping the paint off. Now it is still wet, but you have dented this paper, so it's going to remain that way. Okay, and then let's make some more. Let's do the stem at the bottom. So I first used sap green, and then this is quinacridone gold. Okay, now I want this stem, this one, to look as if this is in front of this. So what do? I take a dark brown and I very, very gently go over the edge, completing that stem, just like that. See? And I did that with a burnt umber. Okay, just like that. Okay, and that's the stem. Okay, let's use some negative painting to just rectify this leaf shape. It kind of looks a little awkward here. So I'm going to take ultramarine blue mixed with sap green. And I'm going to do some negative painting. I know you hear me say negative painting all the time, but it's true. I cannot do without this technique. I just love it so much. Now, values, right? The lights and the darks, extremely important for painting. If you look at this painting, this particular section right here, this is somewhat light and this is light as well. You need some kind of a contrast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some dark purple and just work on this area a little bit until I see the right, or what looks to me like a right value between the purple and this light green, because both are in the same value range. So let's see if we can do this. I still want this to look darker than this. So I need to be very careful. And that's why I said watercolor is all a back and forth process until you feel like you've achieved the right light, and shadow, and color, and contrast, and everything. Okay. Like that. Similarly, this. I need this to be light, but then I'll have to darken this leaf just a little bit. So we're almost done. I'm just going to intensify a few colors here and there. And then we will call this painting finished, almost finished. It's very hard, you know. I'm sure many of you feel, I think one of the things that we struggle with most is when to stop. I struggle with that all the time. And sometimes my mentors tell me, okay, stop already. You know, you've done. You're like, this is now complete. But I guess many of us struggle with that. I have to tell you something. The colors that you see on the screen are very different from what I am seeing here. I don't know if I'll have time or if we can, but if I log in from my phone, you will see the exact colors of what I'm working with currently, because you have to see it. It's much prettier in person. But anyway, so that's that. And in terms of, okay, we'll do a little, like I said, dots and dashes are a big thing in watercolor or in any painting for that matter. So having, you know, sticking those branches here and there, stem shapes. Okay. This is pretty much complete, but I can always go back to it and work on it some more. The way I work with background, just for you to have a little bit of a knowledge about how I do backgrounds, I use this flat 3/4 inch flat brush. You could use 1 inch, 3/4 inch, and I just wet the paper. So I do this. I'm just applying water at this point.
Would you typically do this at the end once you knew where all your flowers were going to be?
Yeah, kind of. I never start with the background, that's for sure. I always do after. Some people like to do the background because I'm so fluid with my shape. I don't know where it's going to typically go. So I just leave background for the end. Yeah. So, and then I'm taking a peach shade. Oops, a blue got mixed. Don't worry, you can always fix that by just clearing that out. Okay, I think I got my peach mixed with the blue. So I do this. typically wait for the painting to dry completely. Yellow ochre. And if you're very worried that you haven't gotten all spots, like these tight regions right here, just move to a different smaller brush. And just do the same thing. That's it. Just to fill those, right? I'll intentionally drop some blues. Purples. I guess you're not able to see. It looks pretty pale, right, on the screen. It's pretty. It's a lot more intense in person. And then I would just turn it around, apply water. You don't have to fill all the way or the entire sheet. Some people like to just do a little bit around the subjects, and that's perfectly fine too. What I would do at this point, or before I start the background, I would change my water. I think that's something that I would surely do. And blue. So one of my teachers told me, when you have a blue this side, try to have a little bit of that on the opposite side as well. So and you can always develop, you guys. Like I could make more flowers this side, or I could have added a few more things here. And then you could always just keep improvising or adding to your composition. Nothing has to be absolutely exact. So I'm going to call this painting almost finished, but I know I will go back and I will definitely make a few more adjustments. But I really wish I could. Do I still have time to just log on to my phone and show you the exact colors of what they look like?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Okay. So very often another technique I use is an old toothbrush like this. Really, really old toothbrush. And I use a technique called splattering. It's nothing, it just gives a visual interest. That's all there is to it. So say, for example, I will dip this in my brush. See how dark this has become, which means it's time for me to change that water. I would maybe dip into something called something like a dilute wash of quinacridone sienna, and I would dip it, and I would just do this. You see those dots? Tiny little dots? Sometimes I like to do that. It looks nice in a finished painting. Let me see if I can log in from my phone and still show you. I might have to probably mute myself, but let's try. So most of this painting is complete. I've used negative painting. I have used splattering. I've done wet on wet. I've done wet on dry, a lot of negative painting technique here and there. I've used some tools here and there. So let's see. Some link. In the meantime, if you have any questions for me, please feel free to ask.
So when you get that one particular fancy color from Reeves, do you have to buy the entire set, or do they actually sell that color by itself?
Which one? Which
The
color?
paint that you still use. I'm teasing you, the student grade.
Oh, that.
You have to
Well,
buy-
I tried to somewhere get a match, like, you know, any flesh color, peach color really works great. I'm just kind of using what I have, Helene. I don't know why I'm not able to log in from my phone, because I really wanted you guys to see.
I mean, the colors from here already look.
Really, do they? So let me just change. It's still going to look the same, but it does look a lot more richer for me. But I will probably work some more. I might make very, very loose petal shapes, just to give us suggestion that there's something more happening, and maybe add a few more leaves here and there, and then call it complete. And it should. I'll try to make it. I mean, no two paintings are similar, but I'll try to see if I can achieve more of something like that.
That's beautiful.
Thank you. Huh. It's done yesterday. But yeah, so this is pretty much what I do, and this is how my process is. If you guys have any questions, comments whatsoever, please feel free to ask.
If you send me a version of the when it's finished, I can put that up on our social media so people can see the finished product.
Certainly, absolutely, I will, Helene.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this wonderful demo.
Thank you very much, everyone. I also want to just let everybody know that I have signed up for, I don't know, 14 different events starting October 14th until, I don't know, December 16th or so. I will be doing another watercolor demonstration at the Livermore Public Library on October 16th, which is a Monday at 1:30 p.m. I will also be doing a free watercolor workshop with all materials included at the Livermore Library after the demo. So the demo is on October 16th and the watercolor workshop is on October 19th. I will take a maximum of 10 students, and you will need to call to register, and you can just come, and we can do a small little painting. It's from 10 to 4. Hey, Helene and Tatiana, is there any way I can send some of this information for you to pass it along to members? Is that possible? Or can the members write to me if they want to be on my list where I let them know about all the events?
Or if you send the photo of your finished work and then the info you want included with it, I can put those up together.
Sure. And maybe I can give you my email address, and those who write to me, I can just include them in my contact list, and then I can send all the information, workshops, events, everything that I'm doing.
And don't forget, everybody, she's going to be doing a workshop for us in 2024. We have to figure out the dates, but now that you can kind of see her style and her technique, I think it'll probably be a pretty fantastic workshop.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes, I'm really, really looking forward to doing this in Fremont. And my website, again, it will work soon, but it is www.daintylymade.com. My Instagram handle is daintylymade. And I'm not on Facebook. I just have a website and Instagram. So stay in touch with me. I can give you my email address on
Yes,
chat
please.
now.
Yeah, in chat.
Yeah, and if you want to know more, everything that's going on in my art world, I'll be happy to add you to my personal list. And that's my email address right there. Just write to me, let me know that you want to be included in workshops or events, and I'll just add you in. But I hope you enjoyed it. I've shown almost like most of the technique.
Absolutely.
And
you.
thank you very much, FAA, for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to do a watercolor demonstration with this group.
Thank you, Meghna.
Thank you very much,
know,
everyone.
we had an emergency and she filled in with a week's notice. So so it doesn't match the newspaper if you looked up, but really appreciate her stepping in last minute like that.
Anytime, anything for you.
Meg, what a